Hi everybody, Andrew here, and this is a video about how to administer G Suite, the Google Apps Suite. Okay, so the first thing is right over here, you want to click on Settings and then go to Manage this domain, and then that'll bring up the administration window for G Suite. Oops, it's doing something different. It wants me to verify my password, so I'll put that in. Hasn't done that to me before. But all of Google services do that periodically. So anyway, I'm just going to wait for that. Okay, so here we are at Google Admin, and that'll have several things in there. And through the magic of video, it will load instantly. So here we've got users. That's mostly where you live, or in groups. We use groups to set up things like elders@wellspring.net, because it can send to addresses that are outside our domain as well. We'll look in all these things briefly, but mainly we'll stick to the ones that we use the most. Okay, so let's look at users first. I'm going to click on that now. Okay, so here we have users. They don't actually have to be real people. For example, we've got this CloudPrint user that we use for the CloudPrint server. We have me. You can reset passwords here. You can rename the account here, or just click on the name to go in there and edit them. You can suspend people. You can delete them. I have chosen to only suspend people so that we can always go back and look at their data later. So here we are. You can see what's in here. Now, probably the most important thing in here is aliases. So let's try to find that. So it turns out aliases are right here under Account. So you just click on Account, and that'll open up, and you have a few things there. Basic information, contact info, etc., etc. And then you have aliases. So anybody who sends anything to info@wellspring.net, webmaster@wellspring.net, TechSoup@wellspring.net, or jchristian@wellspring.net, it will come to me, Andrew@wellspring.net. This is used instead of a group. You could use a group, but the problem with using a group is when you send something to a group, you don't get it yourself, so you can't test it. So this is useful if I want to test that Webmaster is coming to me. I can send something to webmaster@wellspring.net and it will come to me. I use TechSoup@wellspring.net for the TechSoup account. I could have used a group, but I wanted to test it the first time, so I did it here. jchristian is specifically for testing. I use it for testing things in Fellowship. But anyway, you can create aliases here. If you can't find a group, it might be an alias. So go look at the person's account. That's pretty much all that you really care about here, because you can change passwords on the previous screen. So let's go back to Google Admin and look at the next thing, groups. Groups is actually something that I do all the time. So for various accounts, like 8x8 whoever's handling 8x8 at the time, you make a group and it sends stuff to them. Specific machines, we have an iMac that we call Blender@wellspring.net just because we put the software Blender on it. That was our main use for it at the beginning. Cafe, who's ever handling Cafe, MailTrain. There's all sorts of groups in here. This is really easy to do. Let's use Creative House as an example. We'll just go in there and you can see here, manage users in Creative House. Go in there. And when it loads, you can see who's in the group. You can click on the here and then remove them if you want. You can add new people here by just typing in their email addresses separated by commas and then click add. It'll give you a warning, etc. Let's go back and see some specific groups. So I'm going to go back to groups. And the interesting thing here is like elders and elder spouse and all the individual elders. So each individual elder has their own group used as an alias. And then each of those aliases is used in elders, and then elders is used in elder spouse, and then we just add the spouses in elder spouse. And the reason we do this complicated thing is so that if any of these things are updated, you don't have to update any of the rest. So let's take a look at an example. So one example here is Elder Don Jones. Don Jones at wellspring.net. And so that's what we put on the website for the elder list, Don Jones at wellspring.net. That way, if he's ever not an elder, we can just delete this and it will go nowhere. Nobody can bug him. All right. And then under elders, we'll see that we've used Don Jones at wellspring.net, not his actual email address. So manage users and elders. Aha, it loaded, but I'm just now remembering we made it a little bit more complicated still. So because sometimes the elders want to talk to just each other without talking to pastors, elders at wellspring.net includes the pastors, but we have this other thing called only elders at wellspring.net, and we can click on that group here and go there directly. Okay, so then we're going to manage users and only elders. Okay, so here we are. It has loaded, and you see we're using these aliases for each elder to list them here, so that if we change their actual address, we just go to their individual group, change their address there, and it updates everywhere it's needed. And now if we look at elder spouse, just manage users and elder spouse, there you can see that this goes to elders and then the spouses. So there's only one place where I need to update, for example, Carrie's email address here in order for her to get elder spouse. If I want to update Kevin, I go to elders. If I want to update Don Jones, I go to Elder Don Jones. And then it gets updated in all the other places. So that's how that works. So let's go back to Google Admin and look at something else. Okay, so we've got company profile and billing, apps and support. Those are all things that we might actually use. Sometimes actually not really billing because it is free to us. Apps here, you get to choose which apps are available to all the users on the domain. I've never actually used reports or device management. But device management can do some interesting things like delete people's Wellspring data off their mobile phones if they are no longer an employee. You can do that sort of thing. Support, this is how you actually contact them if you ever have a technical question. Trying them but via phone won't work. You need to actually have a code before you can call them, and you get that here. So let's quickly look in apps to see what kinds of things you can choose, and then we'll look at company profile, and then that'll be it. So here we are in apps, and you can see you've got the core G Suite, that's Gmail, Calendar, Drive, etc. Let's see what's in there. Click on that. So all of those should be on for everyone. Those things are Calendar, Classroom, which we don't use, Contacts, Drive and Docs, Gmail, Google Talk, Groups for Business, that's just groups. Keep we don't use, Sites we don't use, but we could. We use WordPress. In Google Vault we don't use, that's actually off. So there's a bunch of Google services that we actually have turned on so that people could use them if they want. They're Google, so they're free to us. And then you have marketplace apps. We don't have any of them, but these are for pay extensions to the G Suite. So let's take a look in here, additional Google services, and see what's in there. Okay, so Blogger is on, so people can make blogs. They can make multiple blogs. That's actually something we might use if we weren't using WordPress. In fact, we did used to use it. This is how we did Rick's blog. The web store, yeah, it's on. FeedBurner we definitely use. We use that for our podcasts, our sermon podcast. Google Analytics we definitely use on our WordPress site. Bookmarks, books, Chrome Sync, we definitely are using that. Google Code, not so much, but it's there. Here, skipping down a bit. YouTube, everybody can put videos up for free and do YouTube Live. Google Maps is in here. But now here's an area of stuff where we don't have it on, but we could. Just a whole bunch of stuff. And, I don't necessarily know what all these things are. Google AdSense and AdWords, I do know. That might be of interest to Emily for advertising Wellspring in the future when people do searches for churches in our area. But there's all sorts of stuff in here, lots and lots of stuff that you could consider turning on. Finally, we're going to go here in company profile and see what's there. Okay, so there's only a few things in here that are probably interesting. One is here under profile. I am set as the primary administrator, and I have a backup email address here. You're going to want to change that when I leave. There's also a message for a phone number. The support message. You're going to want to change that too when I leave. Okay, now back in profile. Under personalization, if we ever want to change our logo, this is where we can upload it. Back up to profile again. There's this thing called custom URLs. Right now, we pretty much access everything by just going to Gmail and then clicking on a different app that you want to go to. But if you wanted to make it a little bit easier to get places, you could turn on these things. You could make this like mail.wellspring.net, calendar.wellspring.net, drive.wellspring.net, etc. Okay, now here we are back at Google Admin Home, the Admin Console. The last thing I'm going to say here is just that all these question mark things are contextual help for every page you're on. It's a great way to learn about it. And if you do need additional help, you can always contact their support. So if you have any further questions for me, just let me know. God bless.